Welcome back to the Developer Marketing Summit. We're about to join another amazing talk, but just before we do, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, speakers, and you, our wonderful audience, for making this event possible. With expert presentations and inspirational discussions on the agenda, you are in for a real treat today. Please ensure you are sharing your feedback and asking questions in the comment section of the video, as our speakers will be answering them throughout their session. After the event, a great place to continue the conversation is in the new Developer Marketing Alliance Slack community. I'll be posting the sign-up link regularly in the comments, so if you're not already involved, keep your eyes peeled and join the discussion. And remember, you can gain on-demand access to all of our exclusive event footage with a PMA Pro membership or Access All Areas pass. So with all of this in mind, let's dive back in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Developer Marketing Summit. I am excited to be here. My name is JD Prater, and I'm going to be walking you through 5 strategies to include in your developer go-to-market playbook. As I mentioned, I am JD. I was the first product marketer at Quora. I went on to be a product marketer at Google Fiber and then again at AWS. And currently, I'm the head of marketing at Osmos. You can also find me hosting the Thrills and Chills podcast, where we dive into the highs and lows of establishing product marketing and being the first product marketer. But you guys are here to learn about developer marketing. And too many times I see this, where we come in and we see, I got this cool idea, I got this new type of tea, and it's so much focused on the product, where really it should be this audience first, and really focusing on the segment of customers. Now, how do we get there? How do we focus on this specific audience with our go-to-market? Well, we're going to be walking through this and answering a few questions in today's session. So in today's session, we're going to be walking through how to define markets. How do you create audience segments? How do you evaluate those target segments? How do you win? And then how do you create that mix, that marketing mix? So let's dive in. Number 1, for your go-to-market playbook, how do you define and segment the market? Because there is no single type of developer. There can be a world of difference between someone who's like working at a tech company like Google or Netflix, and someone who works at an early stage startup like myself, and then someone who might be at an insurance company. There's no single type. Just look at all of the words that we can use to even describe what a developer is doing. Software, data, SaaS, algorithms, right? There's a lot going on. And so let's walk through the STP framework: segmentation, targeting, positioning, for our go-to-market strategy. So let's get started with the segmentation. How do we create meaningfully different customer groups? Let's get started by breaking it down and defining what our market is. So you may have heard these terms: TAM, SAM, SUM. TAM, what is your total available market? How big is this thing? Your SAM, what's your serviceable available market? What portion of that fits you and your product? And then lastly, serviceable. This is where you are going to be able to obtain that market. What portion of the SAM can you reach? And that's really important. Let's take a quick look at an example to help make this make more sense. This is from Airbnb's first pitch deck. So they said, look, there's roughly $2 billion in trips booked worldwide. But we're going to focus on people who are looking for budget and online trips. That's 532 million trips booked with Airbnb. This is our market share, roughly $10.6 million. So this is really important. They were able to break it down, saying trips booked, but look right there. They focused on budget and online trips. Important. Now trips booked with them. So what you can really see is they really focused on this minimal viable audience. Minimum, it's too small if you just focus on the minimum. viable, too broad. Where you find that intersection, thanks to Seth Godin, is the smallest possible audience that you can serve, and this is key, that can sustain your business. This is really important because once you actually focus on delighting the minimal viable audience, two things will happen, and you'll discover it's a lot larger group than you expected. And then two, they start telling others. On the other hand, if you just shoot for the mass, this is another word for like average, you're probably going to create something average, which isn't going to get you very far. So we got to break it down and find this minimal viable audience. And to do that, we're going to segment the market into subgroups. So market segmentation, this is all about that process of dividing the market into subgroups. These can be based on characteristics such as like age, behaviors, income levels. And this process will help you understand what your key customers want, where they are, how to talk to them effectively. So let's take a look at what a potentially could look like for you. Devs. This is from the Stack Overflow 2021 developer survey. So they said, which of the following describes your current job? Please select all that apply. These are developers describing their own job, and look how long this list is. So let's zoom in here. Maybe it's like on the top 10. And we can see full stack, back end, front end. Then we've got desktop, mobile, DevOps, systems admin, database admin. These are all different types of developers. And you're going to start segmenting and figuring out, where does your product fit? Who is it for? And then really focus in on those markets. So let's look at some other ways that we can break this down. Here it is for professional developers. How old are they? We could then break it down and say, hey, we want to target these age range. We could look at our competition. Who is our competition focused on? And we're going to start listing those things. Here's our company. Here's competitor 1, competitor 2, competitor 3. And we're going to just list it: age, gender, occupation, income, country, values, lifestyle, and so on. But what you're going to start to find is there will be some differences. And that's what's going to be key too, so that you can focus on when we get to that positioning to win. From here, let's start breaking down our segmentation mix. Maybe you want to focus on CTOs. There's software developers. You maybe want to focus on infrastructure, ops, security developers. These are all different ways to break down that developer. Maybe it's kind of under what org do they live under? And we're going to break it down and understand how do they consume media? What are their hashtags? We're going to start to understand more about them. This is very similar to those personas that we're all used to creating, but think of this as market and now subgroups. Maybe you want to break it down by full stack. Remember we talked about that Stack Overflow. Full stack engineers, front end engineers, back end, mobile, DevOps. At the end, you'll get something similar to this. Maybe it's your ideal audience segment is one that is both large and still growing. So key, remember, it has to be able to support your business, and you're able to reach them with your marketing efforts. You want to align that segment with your business strategy. So from here, once we align it, we can now say, okay, cool. Now we're going to go after this because it's going to require tough choices. There may be a large number of variables that can be used to differentiate consumers on a given product category, yet in practice, it becomes impossibly cumbersome to work with more than a few at a time. So we have to focus. Whenever you focus, that's a tough choice because there's going to be a trade-off. So if you're looking for something to do like this with your market subgroups, here are a few audience intelligence tools that I've used in the past, and I would also recommend that you take a look at, because these tools will help you understand who your audience is and start breaking down the market. So that way you can focus on your core persona, but also your market and subgroup. So you've got it. You understand who you're going to be going after. Now we need to decide who we're going to target. We got to evaluate and select those. So step 2 is now targeting. Which of these are most likely to generate the conversions? So we need to make sure that it's attractive in mind. We got to figure out, are they big enough? Are they going to be profitable? Can we reach them? Because you'll need to take into account in your overall business strategy, that the attractiveness of a segment and that competition that exists in that segment. So we're going to zero in on the segments that you feel will be the most profitable for your business. How do we do that? Let's break it down. Here's a really easy way to start to think about the evaluating of the attractiveness. So you've got segment 1, segment 2, segment 3. Maybe you're focusing on just 3 of them. Now, let's just do a quick strengths, weakness. You could do a full SWOT analysis if you wanted to here for each segment. But the key here is, what are your strengths to win? What are your weaknesses? These are going to be very important, because this will also help your sales team. Think about your objection handling. Think about the questions that there might be coming up. But in the end, it's how well are we, are the existing segments being served by other companies? How large is that segment? Start thinking through these things. One of the ways that I like is Porter's. So Porter's 5 forces. And this is all about the market segmentation evaluation. And what he has done is he's basically broken it down into 5 undeniable forces that play a part in shaping every market and industry in the world, with some caveats. But the 5 forces are frequently used to measure the competition intensity, attractiveness, and the profitability of an industry, of a market. So threat of new entrants, bargaining power of buyers, the threat of substitute products, the power of the suppliers, and then lastly, that rivalry among existing competitors. When you fill this out, you're now able to objectively understand and evaluate each target segment. So we can go back and say, okay, here is our target segment. We're going to focus on IT decision makers. It's roughly 7,600 people. Here's their geography. Here's their influencers. Here's the technology brand affiliations that they have with it. And now we can say, can we win? How well does this align? We'll use those segments. We'll list our strengths. We'll list our weaknesses. And we'll do the same thing for segment 2 and segment 3. And now we're able to evaluate objectively to say, hey, I think segment 1 is going to give us a clear path to win. Let's now focus our positioning and our marketing mix to focus on that one, while not focusing maybe on segment 2. This is the trade-off. These are the tough choices that you'll have to make. So, number 3, let's move on. We segmented the market. We are now focusing on the targeting, and now it's time to win. We now need to figure out what sets our product and services apart from the competition in the minds of your target audience. And there's a few ways to come at this. But just remember that your positioning is going to funnel in to your price, your product, your distribution, and your promotion. This is essentially the 4 Ps at work here. This isn't just positioning as in like a strategic narrative or your messaging. This is truly, how are we going to position our product, potentially our company, to win? These are what the outputs it's going to be affecting. It's going to be impacting price. It will be impacting the product. If you're serving front-end devs, that's going to look different than if you're serving security-focused devs, right? There's a difference there. So a common positioning exercise I've used in the past, and there are a lot of different ways to do this, but essentially, what is the product? What is that description? What is that market that you're going to be competing in? Who is that target segment? We just went through this. What are those competitive alternatives? And this includes competitors that are free. A lot of times in developer, you have to include open source. And a lot of times you just have to include like Excel. How many times is Excel the actual competitive alternative? Because it's just the status quo. It's just the way we've always done it. A lot of times it's manual processes. You need to list these because these are going to be extremely important. What is your primary differentiation? What attributes set you apart? Lastly, What are the key benefits of those differentiations, those attributes? Another way, again, to think about this is we're all familiar with April Dunford. Go read her book. It's amazing. We've all used it, I'm sure, but if you haven't, please go check it out. It's worth the read. And you can see she follows a very similar path where she looks at the competitive alternatives. What are those unique attributes? What is the value? The customers that care, and then what's the market you can win, right? So it's a very similar way of getting at it. Well, let's break down a few of these. How do we understand our customers' needs? So we've subgrouped it, we've targeted it. We got to go and understand, what does our customer need? And you need to understand this. We need to understand what they do, what is their occupation, what is their interest, when they buy. Understand the purchase cycle. Is this something that you could just offer a freemium and they can come in and start using it and then it'll eventually grow with them? Or is it something that's going to require a buying committee? Maybe they need the CTO's approval. Maybe they need cross-functionally the PM to be involved in whatever they're buying. Understand that, because this will impact how they buy. Is this something that they just buy from a website? Is it something they buy in person? Is it something that they're going to need a demo for? All of these things are impacting your customers' needs because they are going to expect something of you. I think we all know devs expect something, and it's a little bit different than that traditional model that we've all been used to, because you don't want to disappoint them. Once you disappoint, they may never come back. And that's incredibly important if you're going to try to gain that repeat business. So break it down, understand your customers' needs, fill out something like this. Then go out and understand the positioning map. Understand, is it complex? Is it price? Where does your competition fit? How are they approaching the market? Do you see any gaps? Incredibly important whenever you're thinking through your own product and how to price that product. Then write it down. This is that competitive positioning matrix. So again, you have your company, you have your competitors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be. Who are their target customers? So I've seen the same product be positioned for different teams. I've seen the same product be positioned, take CRMs, for example. You got HubSpot, who's really focused maybe more on the marketers. You got Salesforce, who's more focused on sales team. You could take Intercom, a little bit more focused maybe on the CS team. So there are different ways to come about this and understand who your target customers are and where those overlaps are. What are your key benefits? How do you price it? Ultimately, what is your value prop? Once you do this competitive positioning matrix, you now have amazing battle cards too, to then equip your sales team with. So this is a win-win, because this is going to feed into your strategy for your positioning. And again, lots of ways to position. There isn't just one way. You could focus on a category and say, hey, we are the category leader. And when you become synonymous with that service, think about Zoom. We now just say, hey, do you want to hop on a Zoom? Right? They have taken over video meetings. How about user? Position for a specific target group of users and or behavioral parameters. A lot of times, devs and the products that we are building for them will probably fall somewhere in here, maybe even under application, that this is the best for a certain type of application. Maybe you want to position under quality and price and say, hey, we are the most expensive product. We are the enterprise version of this product. If you want best in class, if you want the premium version, it's us. Or hey, we're actually going to skim off them and say, hey, you don't actually need to be charged that much. We're going to offer maybe a free tier or something like that. You can also then focus on your attributes. So this is positioning focused on zeroing in on like your unique selling proposition. These are your value props, and you can just focus on that. Maybe you've got a way that it's like a no code tool. That's an attribute. Hey, you can now do this without using code. But ultimately, it's thinking through, how do you get your product to stand out from the rest of the market? Is it more affordable, higher quality, and be able to position your products logically within the market as a whole? Incredibly important. But Focus on how your positioning can win the largest amount of market share. That's what's going to be key, because now you can fill out number 3. So we have our target, with our segments. We then focused over here with our strengths and our weaknesses. Now we can take one and say, hey, for target or for segment 1, here's our strengths, here's our weaknesses, and we're going to select them and say, these are their top customer needs, and then here are the value props. And you're going to do this for every single segment. So this is just an example of maybe if you focused on segment 1, if you had another one, you could add to the right here and say position the product, another segment, and so on and so on. So we have a good understanding of our segment in the market, how to target them, and how to position to win. It's now trying to figure out, how do we reach them? How do we develop our marketing mix? Because as I mentioned before, it's not a traditional buyer's journey. So how can you attract devs to your product? Well, again, going back, our positioning. However we decide to position, it's the marketing mix that's ultimately going to figure out how we position to them and how we get to them, right? So this is the 4 Ps, right? We all know price, product, promotion, place, but this exact makeup looks a little bit different, and it has various changes based on new technologies, ways of thinking, how you're pricing it, what are your unique selling props. So understand there are multiple ways. So you could say, hey, we've got a pretty big target market. Our product is fairly applicable to a lot. I'm going to go with the mass marketing. Now, this is pretty undifferentiated. You just kind of throw it out there. You kind of ignore segmentation. So pretty much everything that we've worked for. Or you could probably focus on like the last couple 3 here. The very bottom on micro marketing. This is a hyper focus. This is a strategy that focuses so narrowly that it caters just to the needs of individual marketing. So you're thinking of like just small segments. Maybe it's local type of marketing. I want to win devs in San Francisco that work at startups at this, right? And you're just kind of layering on, and as you're doing your micro targeting. So I think the vast majority of us are probably going to be somewhere in the middle with differentiated and niche marketing. Ultimately, this is going to feed in, right? So we've divided this market into subgroups. We now understand their characteristics. And now we're going to understand what they want, where they are, and how to talk to them effectively, right? And this is what's ultimately key, because now we want to figure out, how do we reach those markets? So you'll develop a quick, little template like this. You can say, hey, I'm going to fill in these boxes. How do I reach them? What are my platforms? And ultimately, how are you going to win them? Now, there's some work done by OpenView. They put together a developer-focused go-to-market playbook. Go check it out. It's really good. I'm a big fan of it. I would say that their go-to-market playbook mostly focuses on the distribution side of the 4 Ps. But one thing I really liked was this one, kind of talking about how they want to discover, how they want to start, activate, convert, and scale. So it's no longer this like traditional prospect lead opportunity. It's get them in. Let them into the product, let them figure things out themselves, and then they'll convert and scale. And they gave some pretty good examples of products that are currently doing this. And a lot of them do this with freemium or like free trials. So take a look at this one. This is their product benchmark. Go ahead and check that one out as well. It's really good, because I think one of the biggest things that we all struggle with is trying to figure out, like, is it freemium, free trial, demo? When do I do these things? And I have actually found this 2x2 to be the most helpful when figuring this out. So it's, if you have a high complexity and you can have a high price, that's a demo. Now, if you're not as complex, you could probably get away with a free trial, as long as they can, like, basically, can they complete their POC? Can they get done with a proof of concept quickly? Or maybe, hey, this is actually super easy to get started. I'm just going to do a freemium version of it. It's easy. It's pretty cheap. It's $5 a seat. Maybe you have seat-based pricing. So go ahead and check this out. I think this was worth mentioning because I know a lot of us in the developer marketing are trying to figure this out of what is our acquisition model? Like, how do we get devs into the product? And I found this to be super helpful. Lastly, when you think about your marketing mix, I wouldn't sleep on influencers in media. I think this is something that's kind of underrated for devs, but what you'll see here on the x-axis is mention volume. So in other words, it shows like how often software developers are sharing articles from media publications. The y-axis is showing the number of engagements resulting from those media mentions. And the size of each bubble is total impressions. So the total impressions in this context are the aggregate sum of like the followers for every person who is engaged. So really cool to kind of see here where devs are hanging out, where they're sharing things. And don't forget engaging those influencers and influencer marketing, bringing that kind of B to D, if you will, to B to C and thinking of it that way. So let's do a quick recap of everything of what we're going to do, because we got to tell the world like what we are, what problem we solve, and why we're different. So what we've done here is this entire process is we define the market, we create segments, we evaluate them, we then create those profiles, we evaluate how attractive those are, we then select them, we then develop our positioning strategy for that target market. And then based off that positioning strategy, we can then implement our marketing mix. And lastly, measure performance. That's what's ultimately key for all of this. And by the end of it, you'll have something that looks like this. You'll have your segment market, your target market, your positioning for it, and then your ultimate marketing mix for product, price, promotion, and place. So 5 strategies that you need to develop your developer go-to-market playbook. And if you've enjoyed this presentation, let's connect. I'm happy to answer any of your questions that may have come up. Happy to share any slides that may have resonated with you. Just, tag me on LinkedIn, hit me up on Twitter. Happy to connect, and good luck on developing your developer go-to-market strategy. We'll see you next time.